is Dina. I'm a celebrity hairstylist and makeup artist. I've been lucky enough to work with some really cool people, like the crew of Elvis Duran and the Morning Show as their official glam girl. I also work with Delilah, who's the queen of sappy love songs. And I've also done some cool things like work with JWoww for her wedding. I also own this place where we're at, which is called Dina's Kiss and Makeup, my hair salon in Secaucus, New Jersey. A lot of people have gotten to know me as this glamorous person who works with celebrities and does all these cool things, but I think thanks to things like social media, you see a facade. You see something that is whatever you're thinking. And it's not all rainbows and butterflies, so we're gonna talk about some of that today. There's a lot of stories behind all this makeup, and we're gonna break them down right now.
Dina, thank you so much for joining us. If you could just start out by taking us back and, when everything happened with your mother.
Yeah, so, I had a really normal, good childhood, like no issues at all. Everything was pretty much out of a book, like any kid would want. When I was 13, I remember she came home one night and she had a really bad cough for a month. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this cough is so annoying. Like, just take cough medicine. It literally was so annoying. Everyone was like bothered by this cough. She went to the doctor and he was like, I think you just have asthma. So she was taking an inhaler. She was like, I'm 49 years old. I don't have asthma now. So she went back and got more testing. And then one night I was 13 and she came into the room where I was watching TV and she sat on the ottoman and she said to me, and I will never forget like her body language and her exact words, she said, they found a little bit of cancer in my lung. And looking back, the way she said it, I knew it was really bad. So I was always raised to be a really tough kid. Like, don't complain, don't make anyone's life harder, help people out, like super pretty strict Italian family. So I was like, okay. And I just went up into my room and I just bawled. And I called my best friend like in absolute hysterics. And then she had a really rough battle. It was like awful, so ugly. And pretty much exactly 1 year later, she passed away.
So at 13, you hear this news and, a year later she does pass away, but what happens in that in between? What are the things that you notice that changed the most?
She went from a person who was running miles a day and we would go on family outings like playing tennis and going on vacations, just to see someone who was like energy level 10 go to like a 2. It was really bad. Like, we were constantly in the hospital. We would like go from Nutley, where I grew up, to Memorial Sloan Kettering. And I just remember towards the end, like being in the hospital a lot. She was 5'6" and probably around like 130, 135 pounds. And she dropped down to under 90 pounds. I can't remember exactly, but I believe she was 87 pounds. And I remember seeing her hospital gown in my house open up in the back. And I was just 14 at the time and I felt so sick to my stomach. And that's when I saw that, I was like, I need to like give her permission to die, because it was disgusting seeing that. Like, seeing your mother, like, it was just bones. It was awful. So I think that started the fact that I knew that I was gonna have to say goodbye. Because even then, like knowing nothing about medicine, I was like, I don't see how anyone can come back from that. And I think she died like a couple weeks later.
Now, was it just you? Do you have siblings? Do you have other family that was around?
Yeah, so at the time it was, we had a really tight-knit family. It was the 4 of us. It was my mom, my dad, and me and my sister. My sister's 5 years older. But the dynamic in the house was always like my dad and my sister, who were the jokesters, and then I was like mom's girl. So it was kind of like, your teammates. I feel like when there's 4, you kind of end up with like a 2 and a 2. Mm-hmm. So that made it like even worse for me, because like I lost my number 1.
Yeah. You bring up being 14 and you having all these responsibilities. You're in high school. It's such an important time of your life to grow as a person, and you're basically put on with so many adult responsibilities. Through that time, what did you learn about yourself, and how was it the days and weeks after this happened?
Oh, that's a long question. I learned so much about myself. I didn't have a choice. So, you're a teenage kid. I think 14 is probably the absolute worst time that you could lose your mother. You don't know who you are. You haven't started like dating yet and finding yourself. You're physically awkward. You're mentally not prepared to make any serious decisions. Like, you're just lost at 14 years old. You're not a baby and you're not a grown woman yet. It's really an awkward place to be. I think that anyone, when we ask them, how was life at 14? It's like, question mark, like just a really confusing time. I actually kept living my life as if she were still alive to keep myself like in check. So for example, like I didn't let my grades drop in school. I didn't start going out and like, you know, doing drugs or anything crazy, because I was like, she would be mad at me. She would be so pissed if I started doing anything like that. So operating like that like actually kept me on a really good path. So I just made sure to keep thinking like, she's still watching, she's still listening, she's still hearing and seeing everything I do. So, you know, eventually when I see her again one day, which I firmly believe in, I want her to be proud.
You know, overall, it seems like you were okay. You dealt with it fine. You know, were you always okay? Was it always something that you dealt with?
I was way not okay. I was the opposite of okay. Looking back, 100% a situation like that occurs, I think the child should be seeing a therapist, because I really put on such a tough kid image because I had to. You know, my dad got left single, alone, widowed with 2 teenage girls, like the poor guy. Like, who wants to be in that situation? It was tough. So, you know, I didn't have a mom. I didn't have a female role model. Yeah, I had my sister, but she was 19. She was at NYU having fun. So she wasn't like around for me, you know, like a mom would be. It was really hard. Like I was super depressed, and I knew that I just got kind of put in this position where my dad was working his tail off just to keep our house, because he now we went from 2 incomes. My mother was an attorney, so she did well. And my dad was a musician, an independent artist. So for him to be able to pay school tuition and to keep the roof over our head was definitely really, really hard for him. And I started working right away. When I was 13, I got a job as a bus girl. And then I started waitressing at 14 or 15, because I knew that if I wanted money, I had to get it myself. So that kind of stemmed my whole work ethic, and knowing like, if I want it, I have to get it.
Wow. And it's interesting because, you know, some people would never take it that way. They would, you know, let this take over them, and you just took it and took on all this responsibility at 14 years old, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, if I didn't have such a good upbringing, like honestly, who knows what would have happened in a situation like that. You can really go left or right. Like, you could go left or right on it. Like, you just have to choose. There's no exact science to it at all.
I say that all the time, that
Yeah.
there's, you know, if something in life happens to you, you have 2 directions to go.
It's true.
Yeah.
My dad actually, one of his friends, right after my mom died, told him this quote, and it actually stuck with me for the last 16 years, and it was, "Don't let one tragedy turn into another." And it's so true, because that already happened. We all were dealing with it, but I was like, okay, I'm not gonna become this, you know, like I said, drug addict or like go on the wrong path. I said, I'm not gonna allow that to happen. Even though my depression sometimes really got the best of me and I was just a mess. I was a mess, but I was like, I have to keep busy. I have to keep my eyes on the prize and keep going in the direction that I wanna go in, and there's no other option. So even in the times where I'm like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I like force myself to snap out of that, even though it's really hard to do sometimes.
You know, it's incredible that you didn't allow yourself to have this other tragedy that you speak of, but, you know, unfortunately life didn't really go that way for you.
Nope, of course something else had to happen. When I was 17, my house burnt down. So 3 years later, we never knew like the official cause, but we know what it was. We had an electrician working at the house. I believe it was the day prior, right behind this china closet that we had. And I left that morning for my senior trip to Disney, because my school took all the seniors to Disney every year for like 3 days, I think it was. And I landed in Disney. We were going on the bus from the airport to our hotel where we were staying, and my cell phone rings. This was like the first cell phones that looked so ridiculous. And it was my sister. I'm like, why is she calling me? I picked up the phone. She's screaming at me. You left a straightener on or a candle on. You burnt down the whole house. I freaked out. I was like, I have my straightener packed in my bag, so that didn't happen. And I was like, oh my God, did I burn my house down? I was like, no, I did not burn my house down. Like, I didn't even have a candle on or anything. My room, so my dad and my sister's rooms were on one side of the house. My room was the only one on the other side of the house. And the fire happened underneath my room, which was that china closet, and it was an electrical fire. So all of my stuff went up. I lost, I think, 99% of my belongings. I was able to save my scrapbook, because I remember on the phone asking one of my friends to beg a firefighter to go in and get my scrapbook. And I think everything else had to get thrown out. But it was a million times worse for my dad than it was for me, because the drama that ensued after that was a nightmare, and it aged the poor guy's face probably 20 years. We had to live in a hotel for a month. So my senior year of high school, I was living in a Marriott, which, I'm not gonna lie, the free breakfast every morning was pretty bomb. I think that everybody in my family really went into like survival mode. We were really grateful. No one got hurt, no one died, we were all healthy. So knowing that and having that, we always operated with other people have it worse. Even when something bad happens to me now, my mentality is, but you're lucky and you should be grateful for what you do have. Because I look at other people and they have nothing. Like, there's kids that go to sleep and they don't have any food. They don't have dinner. I never once didn't have dinner in my life. Mm-hmm. So we never felt sorry for ourselves. I think that's the biggest point. We wouldn't allow ourselves to feel sorry for ourselves. So we just kept going. I kept working, and that was it.
So you're 17, 18, and you have both of these tragedies that happened to you. And obviously you and your entire family have this strength of, continuing to move forward and always trying to find the positive in all this terrible stuff that's happening around you. What was the next turning point for you?
I was really trying to find what I wanted to do with my life at that point. I knew that I was always going to do something in business. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to host dog shows with my friend that we would host and charge people tickets to, and I was babysitting. I always just had this hustle kind of inside of me, because my parents always said, if you want something, you have to do it. If I wanted pizza as a kid, they wouldn't call and order it for me. They'd say, here's the phone. They would obviously pay for it. I was 7, but they made me call and order it. They always made me you're going to be independent. My mother always taught me, do not marry a guy for his money, because money comes and money goes. Get the money yourself. Then you can marry for the right reasons. So right before I went away to college, I found a makeup course that was advertised. It was this 40-hour, 1-week course. It was kind of expensive. It was $2,500, and this was, back in 2006. And I wanted to take it so badly. I didn't know that I wanted to do it as my career, but all I wanted as a teenager, and it's so ridiculous, I wanted to be pretty well known. I wanted to be respected, and I wanted to look good too. I can't really explain why, but I just really wanted to take this for personal enrichment reasons. So my dad scrapped up the money. I don't know how he did it, but he said, this is your Christmas present, your birthday present for 2 years. I'm sending you to this class. This is your present for a lot of things for a long time. And I was like, okay, fine, amazing, I'll do it. I was in class on my 18th birthday. That was the second day of class, and I said, this is what I want to do for my career. So right after that class, I had gone to my first college, which was away. I ended up getting a 50% scholarship, so my dad was able to send me there for the first year, and then I was gonna have to be on student loans for the rest. I didn't love being there. And I didn't love being there, and I knew I was gonna have to pay for the whole rest of the 3 years by myself. I said, my gut is telling me to go back home. So I actually transferred to Montclair State, where the tuition was at the time $5,000 a year. So I knew putting myself in a position to go to a much more affordable school would let me open my own business. That's why I left. I said, if I stay here and rack up all this college debt, I'm never gonna get out of it. And I'm not gonna be able to own a business till I'm 30 or 35. But I went to Montclair, where it was way less expensive. My dad was able to pay it off because of the low tuition. And then I opened my business a year out of college. So a year after I graduated college, I was able to open my business.
So in your business, it was, hair and makeup studio as well?
So the first thing I did, I got an LLC, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. But I was like, if I have the LLC, it'll be like a little egg that I can hatch, right? So I started my makeup line out of my apartment when I was 22. I had worked for big makeup companies in between for a little bit, but that super corporate life was not for me. Following a million rules from someone else and getting no recognition and busting my tail, I was like, I want to do this for myself. So I started my makeup line out of my apartment, and then a year later, I found a store for rent in Hoboken, and there were no makeup studios. And I said, I'm gonna put my chairs here. I was looking in the window, it was like this little basement shop. I looked in, I didn't know what the rent was, I didn't know anything about opening a business, but I said, I'm gonna put my mirrors there, the desk and cash register are gonna go there, and the display will be here. Like I mapped the whole thing out in my head, because I knew it was mine already. And then I signed the lease on my 23rd birthday.
Wow.
Having no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I knew I was gonna make it work.
Wow. So you're 23 years old, fairly new out of college. You own your own business. You have, this new career, this life ahead of you, and then another tragedy happens.
Yep. So I'll back it up even one step because it invested me so much more into that space. So I had my shop for a few years. I was doing makeup, I was doing airbrush tans, and we were selling like accessories and like little tchotchke things. But I knew that I wasn't gonna make a ton of money or like a really good living with that. Because makeup is amazing, it's my number one, it's always been. But you really only make money doing makeup 2 to 3 days a week. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's your maxed out. I wanted to make money 7 days a week. So I said to myself, all right, I'm gonna go to hair school because people get their hair done every day. I was just gonna open as a blowout bar so that way I could do people's hair and their makeup. And people get blowouts every day, haircuts, whatever. I went to school, turned out I love to do everything. Cutting, coloring, everything. I now make way more money doing everything. I shut my Hoboken shop down for like 6-7 months, made it a salon. That was a huge financial investment because the money that goes into that is crazy. You have to follow all these state rules. I opened my shop and 14 months later, the apartments upstairs went on fire. So I'm like, this is a practical joke from the universe. I had another fire. The building seemed okay. I mean, the apartments were destroyed, but my shop, like you would walk in it after the fire, it was untouched. I was like, cool, they're just gonna repair the upstairs and I'll be able to reopen in a couple months. It'll be really terrible, but only for a few months, I'll be fine. They started doing repairs, but they never put any like tarp on top of the building or anything. And it was now winter time. So we had a ton of snow. There was a lot of rain in the spring too. My place got destroyed, not from the fire, but from the residual damage. So I got a phone call from my landlord and he was like, they have to do an emergency teardown of the building in 8 hours and you can't get in. So luckily I had gotten most of the stuff out via like, moving trucks, but I still lost thousands of dollars worth of stuff. They just tore the whole building down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So after yet another fire, another obstacle in the way, all these things kind of lead up to where you are now, right? At what point did this start? What point did this salon start where, you have a whole nother life that you're building?
Yeah, so I really believe that everything happens for a reason, as hard as that is to see sometimes and as messed up as you can feel thinking that. But I knew that I was going to figure something out. To me, again, people always have it worse, right? So I had insurance, which helped. This place was way more expensive than my first place, so I still ended up losing all of my money, but I had insurance. I had a good support system. I had just gotten engaged, so I had my fiance. So I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna take this and make it into something better. So I had looked for shops in Hoboken to relocate. I didn't find anything I liked. I almost went to a place, but I just had a weird feeling about it. So before the fire, I told my fiance, now husband, I said, I want to open a shop in Secaucus because I don't think that there's anything like my Hoboken shop here in town. So we found this place, and I said, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to be able to open a second shop again. I had this downtime. Let me open here. The idea was I was still going to reopen Hoboken, but I was going to make this my second shop. Well, thank God I did that. I signed this lease within 8 weeks of the Hoboken fire because I was like, I cannot waste any time, because from my first house fire, I knew how long construction takes. I knew what a headache it was and that it might not go as planned. And I said, what if Hoboken doesn't reopen? I need another plan. So we started construction on this almost immediately, and thank God we did, because X amount of months later, I was like, this is my only shop now. But this is bigger, this is better. So I've been brought to something that wouldn't have been otherwise. So I looked at it like it was a bad event that brought me to a better event.
Couple of bad events that,
yeah,
I feel like it was almost like it wasn't just that fire that prepared you for it. It was the fire before that prepared you for that, and you know, all these life events that have happened to you really prepared you for all the rest happening, which
for sure.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, life's weird. Your dominoes get set up to fall in a certain way, I think.
Yeah.
So.
You know, with that, I know we're kind of running out of time, and just to wrap up, you know, for myself and for my team, we just want to thank you for welcoming us into your shop and, you know, opening up to us about your life and your story. We kind of like for our guests to give a word of advice for someone either going through something similar or just anything that has helped you get through all these tough times.
Yeah. Honestly, I think my biggest thing was just staying focused, and people do have it. I always am thinking like people have it worse. Something could always be worse. So I think my best piece of advice for anyone is count your blessings and think about what you have and how lucky you are to have that. I get made fun of because like I'm so not materialistic about things, and I think it's because of everything that's happened. Like I know that everything can be gone tomorrow. So yeah, I just think my best piece of advice is just be grateful for what you have. Focus on what you have and not what you don't have. That's it.
Awesome. But yeah, thank you again.
Thanks for being here.
Awesome.
For the haters, come on, do it now or later. Yeah. It don't matter what your name is, share your story, we'll be waiting.